The twin moons of Viridia cast a soft, silvery glow over the crystalline canopy, painting the emerald forest in liquid light. Every blade of grass shimmered faintly, humming with bioluminescence as though the planet itself breathed in a slow, steady rhythm. In the center of a flowering glade, Zia sat cross-legged on a hovering platform of woven atherine silk. Her skin, iridescent and flawless, glowed gently in response to the ambient energy around her, the shifting patterns across her limbs as precise as a ceremonial etching. Her long, luminous hair trailed behind her like a living river of light. Untouched by the breeze. To most, she was perfection. Bred into it, born for it. The Atherin whispered her name with reverence. Ah, daughter of High Counselor Taver, embodiment of grace and genetic excellence. She had memorized every ritual greeting, recited every ancient phrase with perfect inflection, and endured countless hours of suitors performing complex mating displays, songs, dances, recitations, telepathic battles, and on one horrifying occasion, a synchronized firefly ballet in her honor. They called her divine, unparalleled, a living poem. But never just Zia. She inhaled deeply, centering her thoughts. The world faded to a soft thrum, her consciousness slipping outward, flowing like water across the valley's dreamscape. Her telepathic reach stretched past the crystalline trees, past the glowing river, beyond the sacred boundary where her kind rarely ventured. And then, unexpectedly, her mind touched another. Was like tripping into a room mid-argument. Come on, you rusted excuse for a glorified Brita filter. Work with me here. The thought wasn't elegant. It wasn't even composed. It was raw, laced with irritation and coated in sarcasm. Za blinked, startled. Before she could retract her reach, more tumbled into her awareness. I swear, if you don't either fix yourself or explode properly, I'm submitting you for disassembly with prejudice. Metal clanged, something sparked. And then came the final blow. At least die with some dignity, you temperamental pile of wet socks. Za burst out laughing. It wasn't a polite smile or the restrained melodic chuckle she used during formal ceremonies. It was sudden, uncontrollable, and shockingly loud. The sound startled a flock of winged pollinators nearby and sent a nearby suitor, who had been silently preparing a telepathic poem, stumbling from his perch with a yelp. She clapped a hand over her mouth, stunned. Atherin didn't laugh like that. Certainly not the daughter of the High Counselor. Certainly not during meditation. Her mind still pulsed with the echoes of the human's frustration, alive with odd phrases and clumsy brilliance. She closed her eyes again, drawn inward this time, trying to trace the lingering thread of that chaotic voice. Ethan Clark. The station files had mentioned him, one of the human xenobiologists sent to study Viridia's ecosystem. He was unrefined, strange, messy, but his thoughts were honest. Honest in a way that no one around her had been in years. Zia rose from her meditation cushion and stepped onto the moss-lit path back to her chambers. The suitor with the telepathic harp attempted to resume his performance, but she waved him off without a word. Everyone wanted her polished, practiced, perfect. But none of them had ever made her laugh. And now she couldn't stop thinking about the human who did. Under the silver gaze of Viridia's twin moons, the forest slept in ripples of bioluminescent stillness. The trees glass-barked and shimmering swayed in a soundless breeze as if holding their breath. Below, in the valley carved between whispering crystal hills, a single anomaly blinked like a synthetic heartbeat. The human outpost, squat and ungraceful, humming with erratic energy. It looked more like a crash-landed mistake than a research station. Za stood at the edge of the ridge above it, cloaked in a sheer mantle of night-woven fiber that refracted moonlight off her skin like liquid pearl. Her heart beat faster than she liked to admit, It wasn't fear, not exactly. But it was something close to it, expectation maybe. Recklessness. No guards. No escorts. No formal entourage. For the first time in her life, Za moved through the world alone, not as the future voice of the Atherin, not as an ideal, but as a person. The decision to come here had not been made lightly. It had formed slowly over the past week, crystallizing. With every ritual she endured, every suitor's telepathic ode she politely suffered through. And always, behind her composed expression, she carried the echo of a human voice snarling at a broken machine with all the subtlety of a blunted tool. At least die with some dignity, you temperamental pile of wet socks. The memory alone made. Her lips twitch. She hated that. She wasn't supposed to twitch. She reached the edge of the outpost perimeter, where a low hum buzzed through the ground, a rudimentary energy fence. Primitive, childish, even. She stepped over it without hesitation. The defense field shimmered, but didn't resist her. She paused just outside the door. No guards, no ceremony, no prelude. It felt terrifying. Then she pressed the chime. Inside the station, chaos answered. A metallic crash rang out, followed by a muffled, "If that's you, Clan, I swear, I will reprogram you into a toaster." A beat of silence. Then more rustling. A thud. A yelp. The door hissed open. Ethan Clark stared at her like a man who had just been slapped by a hallucination. He was taller than she'd expected, lean and tousle-haired, his face unshaven and his shirt stained with something that looked suspiciously like alien sap. His eyes, startled, greenish, rimmed with exhaustion, bounced between her and the hallway behind, as if expecting a camera crew to jump out and yell, "Pranked." Za tilted her head, regaining her composure. She had prepared a carefully phrased, telepathic greeting, a projection of peace, curiosity, and mutual respect. Instead, he said, "UHA, can I help you?" So much for composure. She blinked, momentarily thrown, then recentered herself. With calm precision, she projected the greeting into his mind. "Greetings, Ethan Clark. I am Zia of the Aeon. I come in peace." Ethan jumped back like someone had tasered his spine. "Okay, nope. Nope. Who said that? Was that in my head? Clementine, did you install a brain speaker without telling me?" "Recording initiated," said a cheerful voice from somewhere above them. Zia narrowed her gaze slightly. "It is not a brain speaker. It is telepathy. A common mode of communication among my kind." Ethan's eyes widened. Telepathy. Right. That makes sense, obviously, because this week wasn't already weird enough. He looked her up and down, expression flickering between suspicion and stunned curiosity. "And you're real? Not a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation, caffeine overdose, or one too many glow squirrels barking outside my lab window?" "I am very real," Zia replied evenly, "and considerably more articulate than the wildlife." Ethan blinked, then against all expectation laughed. A short, incredulous bark. "Well, all right then." He scratched the back of his neck, visibly scrambling for what came next. Would you like to come in?" "I'd offer you tea, but my water filter hates me." Zia stepped forward. "I would like that, though I confess I do not know what tea is." "Oh, you're in for a treat," Ethan said, leading her into the station. "Unless you have a problem with bitter plant water that tastes like boiled disappointment." The station was disorganized but alive. Cables ran along the ceiling like vines, consoles blinked with irregular rhythms, and on the far wall someone had scrawled a reminder to stop yelling at inanimate objects. They have feelings too. The floor creaked in a way Zia found deeply unsettling. She sat stiffly on a nearby stool while Ethan rummaged in a cabinet full of oddly shaped mugs and dented containers. You sure you're not here to abduct me or report me for intergalactic filter abuse? He called over his shoulder. I chose to come, Zay said softly. Ethan turned. Chose? My people admire me. But they do not see me. She met his eyes. You were the first being whose mind I touched that didn't immediately posture. You were angry, frustrated, honest. That intrigued me. Ethan paused, the kettle whistling behind him. I'm flattered? He scratched his chin. Though I should probably mention I also screamed at my toaster this morning. It burned the toast again. That's not usually considered a strong first impression. Za smiled, and her glowing patterns shifted ever so slightly, like moonlight dancing over water. I've had many first impressions. Yours was the only one that felt real. Outside, the twin moons rose higher, casting long shadows through the cracked window panes. Inside the station, an alien girl drank bitter tea for the first time in her life, and a human still smudged with grease and doubt began to realize that the universe had just changed shape around him. The forest around the station had begun to whisper. Not with words, not in a language Ethan Clark could understand, but in the way the leaves shifted too rhythmically, how the bioluminescent flora pulsed not in random glows, but in synchronized patterns. It was as if the world was watching, and Zay had noticed it too. She stood just outside the outpost's main entrance, barefoot on the soft mossy ground, her gaze scanning the horizon as the twin moons dipped toward the edge of morning. Her luminous skin pulsed slowly, calm but alert. She hadn't said much since their tea the night before, but Ethan knew better than to mistake her silence for serenity. She was listening to something he couldn't hear. Inside the station, the coffee machine groaned and hissed like a wounded animal, but Ethan was used to its dramatics. He poured 2 cups, his own heavily sugared, hers unsweetened after she declared on her first sip that it tasted like boiled bark, but with charm, and stepped outside. Holding one out, she took it without looking at him. They're shifting, Sa said, almost to herself. The plants? Ethan asked, glancing around. Please tell me they don't unionize. Za didn't laugh this time. The pattern has changed. The trees were echoing moonlight energy last night. Now they echo something else. Ethan sipped his coffee and squinted at the glowing canopy. Any chance something else is just early morning weirdness? Za finally turned her gaze toward him. On Viridia, nothing changes without reason. He hated how calm she sounded when saying ominous things. They sat together on the metal steps, steam rising from their mismatched mugs. The quiet buzz of dawn was different, too ordered, too deliberate. Ethan couldn't put his finger on it, but the back of his neck had been prickling since he woke up. And Za's presence didn't help. She wasn't just beautiful in the way his exhausted mind had first registered. She was impossible. Every movement she made felt choreographed by something older than biology, like her muscles remembered symphonies, not simple coordination. She didn't walk. She flowed. She didn't blink often. And when she did, it was never out of surprise. And yet she kept watching him as if he were the alien. So, he said, trying to shatter the weight of silence, is this how interstellar courtship goes? Mysterious moonlit visits, followed by cryptic nature omens and death stares over breakfast? Za's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. This is not courtship, she said. Ethan raised his eyebrows. Could have fooled me. I did not come to pursue tradition. I came because I wanted to know why your presence unsettled me. He took a long sip. Unsettled, huh? Is that the Atherin word for charmed? No, Za said softly. It is the word for realizing that something you've been told to avoid ... might be the very thing you need. That silenced him. Before he could respond, the station's perimeter alarm let out a short, stuttering chirp. He blinked. That's not normal. Za stood immediately. Something is coming. Ethan raced inside, pulling up the external sensor feed. The console flickered and whined. Static. Then a faint energy signature. Spherical. Unidentified. He turned to Za, who was already beside him. "It's not your people, is it?" he asked. Zia shook her head slowly. "No. The energy is older." The screen blinked again. A new signal, still faint, but growing stronger. It wasn't from the sky. It was under them. "Okay," Ethan said, exhaling. "So?" "Either a subterranean welcome wagon or a very confused space mole." Zia leaned forward, placing her hand on the console. The screen shimmered with a faint hum. "It's an artifact," she murmured. "Buried beneath this land. My people once sought such things, but we were warned to leave them untouched." Ethan frowned. "Let me guess, you didn't listen." Za's expression darkened. "We did, until a few didn't." "Classic," Ethan muttered. "So ... Should I be worried that I built a lab over an alien doomsday device?" Za didn't answer. She was already moving toward the door. They hiked to the ridge just past the north edge of the station, where the signal's pulse grew stronger. The ground had cracked there, barely visible to the naked eye, but glowing slightly with a color Ethan couldn't name. Not quite blue. Not quite alive. The structure emerged like a buried coin, metallic, circular, with runes along its edge that pulsed in rhythm with the twin moon's descent. Dust shifted. Air warped faintly above it. Zia knelt beside it, her fingers tracing the runes. "This is not supposed to be here," she whispered. "This predates our species' current evolution cycle. These were the technologies of the lost ones." Ethan crouched next to her. "Any chance it's a buried music player, like alien Spotify?" Za didn't respond. She closed her eyes, letting her consciousness brush against the device. Ethan watched as her glowing patterns flickered wildly, more intense, more erratic. And then she gasped, stumbling back, clutching her chest. "Za!" She held up a hand. It responded. "It's not dormant. It was waiting." "Waiting for what?" Ethan asked. Zia looked at him, her expression unreadable. "For someone different." The ground trembled. The artifact lit up. A beam of pale energy shot upward, tearing through the trees and into the sky like a silent scream. And somewhere far above the planet, something answered. Zia turned to Ethan, eyes wide with something close. "To fear. You've changed the song," she said. Ethan blinked. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. But the sky began to glow with the light of ships descending. The sky cracked open. Ethan stumbled backward, shielding his eyes as the beam from the artifact sliced into the clouds like a blade of white fire. Trees leaned away from the force, their glowing limbs trembling in response. The twin moons of Viridia, once serene guardians of the night, now looked like witnesses to something ancient and reawakened. A pulse reverberated through the air, a soundless shudder that passed through Ethan's bones and left the hairs on his arms standing upright. Zia didn't move. She stood with her eyes locked on the beacon of light, her glowing skin pulsing in sync with the artifact, her expression unreadable. Atherin didn't show fear, not the way humans did, but Ethan could feel it radiating from her like heat off scorched metal. "I didn't mean to do that," he said, almost to himself. Zia's voice was low, taut with recognition. "You didn't activate it alone. It responded to us both." "Great," Ethan muttered, rubbing his temples. "So now I'm part of an alien duet that just called who knows what from orbit. What's next? A planetary chorus line." Za didn't laugh. Instead, she turned to him slowly, eyes narrowing. "That signal," she said, "was forbiddance." Before he could respond, a new alarm screamed from his wristcom. Ethan tapped it and cursed. "Incoming vessel, fast, sleek. Doesn't match your people's tech." Za was already moving, pulling him to his feet with surprising force. Then it's not an Atheran ship. No, Ethan breathed as he caught sight of it descending sleek, angular, black as night, and utterly unfamiliar. It's someone else. The station barely had time to seal its outer doors before the ship landed in a plume of displaced mist. It didn't roar or flash like the Atheran vessels. It whispered into existence, a predator rather than a diplomat. The hull was matte, smooth, absorbing all light instead of reflecting it. Even Viridia's ever-present glow seemed afraid to touch it. Ethan stood with Zia at the station entrance, weaponless except for the wrench he still hadn't fixed the water filter with. His pulse hammered in his throat, but he forced out a weak laugh. Okay, so worst-case scenario, they're friendly and just have really bad taste in ship design. Za didn't respond. Her gaze was fixed, her body tensed as the ship's ramp hissed open. 3 figures emerged, tall, armored, faceless. Their suits were form-fitting but seamless, as if grown rather than manufactured. No insignia, no language, no light. Just movement, quiet, precise, calculated. One of them held a glowing orb pail and humming with a sound Ethan couldn't quite hear but could feel crawling up the back of his skull. "That's not good," he muttered. "Za, please tell me this is just a weird space customs check. They're not from Athera or any known allied system." Her voice was barely above a whisper now. They should not exist. The figure raised the orb and activated it. A wave of pressure slammed through Ethan's head, soundless, wordless, but heavy as a scream made of gravity. He staggered back, gritting his teeth as the world twisted sideways. The station lights flickered. Systems HICCUPED.Z stepped in front of him like a shield, her glowing skin erupting into brilliant, intricate patterns that pulsed like a living firewall. Her hands lifted, and with a sound like shattering glass, a wave of invisible force surged from her form and struck the orb. The device sparked, shorted, and died. The lead figure stumbled only slightly, but enough to reveal that they could, in fact, be touched. Za didn't wait. She strode forward, voice sharper now. "You do not belong here." No response. Ethan whispered, "You sure diplomacy isn't an option?" Za's gaze didn't waver. "These are not diplomats. They are reclaimers." "Reclaimers?" Ethan asked, feeling his stomach twist. "They come to salvage what others have forgotten or buried. Ancient technologies, forbidden systems, entire civilizations." The 3 figures reformed their stance, this time clearly bracing for confrontation. The one who'd held the orb now drew a weapon, a thin, humming blade that vibrated faster than sight. The other 2 fanned out, circling. "I vote we run," Ethan said. "We can't. They'll reach the artifact." Za moved again, faster than Ethan thought possible. Her feet never quite touched the ground, and her light flared in a way that bent the shadows around her. With a motion like drawing energy from the air itself, she pulled force into her hands and launched it in a focused burst. One of the reclaimers went flying, skidding across the mossy ground like a stone across still water. The others countered. Blades crackled. The air screamed. Ethan grabbed the only thing he could reach, a pipe wrapped in copper wire and half-melted insulation, and swung it with a yell as one of them closed in. The strike landed awkwardly on the armored shoulder, doing almost nothing. But it did distract long enough for Zia to strike again, disabling the second with a concussive wave. The third didn't retreat. It turned its faceless helm toward the artifact and ran. "No!" Za cried. Ethan didn't think. He ran after it, lungs burning, ground shifting beneath his boots. He leapt, tackled, and both he and the reclaimer crashed down next to the artifact. The intruder's blade hissed to life, but before it could swing, a flash of searing light struck it from behind. Za stood above them, one hand still outstretched, eyes glowing like wildfire. The reclaimer collapsed. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same. Ethan lay on the ground, chest heaving. "Okay," he gasped. "So, is it always like this when you hang out with people?" Za knelt beside him, checking his arm. Her fingers were gentle. "You were foolish. I was heroic. You tripped while lunging." Details. But she was smiling now, barely. Still, her expression sobered as she looked back at the artifact. "This is only the beginning." Ethan sat up slowly, brushing moss from his jacket. "Of what?" Zal looked to the sky, where the beam had long since faded, but the stars remained, too bright, too alert, of something that was never meant to wake. And far above them, in the cold spaces between stars, another ship stirred. The first raindrops of Viridia's rare storm began to fall in streaks of glowing blue. They sizzled faintly as they touched the crystalline canopy, sliding down leaves that shimmered with light even as thunder rumbled low beneath the ground. The air, usually sweet with flora and warmth, now tasted metallic, charged with something ancient and restless. Ethan stood on the edge of the clearing near the artifact site, soaked in sweat and stormlight, gripping a broken pipe. He still insisted on calling a weapon. His pulse was uneven. His hands trembled not from fear, but from adrenaline that had long overstayed its welcome. The reclaimers were gone, for now. But the silence they left behind wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that crouched, waiting. Behind him, the station's lights flickered again. Inside, Zia floated cross-legged above the lab floor, her luminous skin dimmed to a pale glow. She was meditating, but this time not to center herself. This time, she was listening. Ethan stumbled in, wiping mud from his face, and looked at her. "They're not coming back tonight." Za's eyes opened slowly. "They will, and they won't come alone." Ethan slumped into the nearest chair, breathing heavily. "Great. More space ninjas. Maybe next time they'll bring snacks." Za didn't smile. Instead, she stood graceful, unshaken, and moved to the central console. Her fingers danced across the glowing interface. With a low hum, the artifact's internal scan lit up on the station's monitors. "What are you looking for?" Ethan asked, standing to join her. "A key," she murmured. "The artifact's true function has not yet been revealed. The signal we triggered, it was only the first layer, a lock." Ethan frowned. "A lock? To what? A weapon?" Sa hesitated. "No, a test." He blinked. "A test for what? Galactic compatibility? Emotional stability? Because I'm running on caffeine and sleep deprivation, and I haven't done laundry in 3 weeks." Za gave him a glance, half fond, half pitying. "You joked to deflect. But the artifact doesn't respond to strength, or intelligence, or technology." "What then?" She turned to face him fully. "It responds to harmony," Ethan stared. "Like ... singing? Not vocal harmony, resonance, emotional congruence. Two minds aligned in intention, in truth." He froze. "Wait, are you saying it activated because of us?" Za didn't answer. Ethan took a step back. "I'm not some ancient chosen one, Za. I yell at appliances. I run from danger. I used a laser scalpel to toast bread yesterday. You're honest," she said. "Raw, messy, but unfiltered. That's what it needs. Not a perfect vessel. A real one." Ethan scoffed, running a hand through his damp hair. "That can't be right. You're the one who glows. I'm just some guy with a bad temper and a toolbox held together with duct tape." Za stepped forward, close enough that the glowing patterns on her skin reflected off his shirt. "Everyone wants me," she said, her voice low, steady. "But I chose you." Ethan's breath caught. Then the station lights blacked out. The hum of energy vanished. Every system went dead at once. Za turned sharply, her glow intensifying. "That wasn't me." Ethan squinted at the monitors, which now displayed only static then dash movement. The emergency backup kicked in, casting the room in soft amber. The monitor flickered back to life, displaying an orbiting object, a satellite they hadn't launched. A mechanical eye had blinked open above Viridia, watching. "Tell me that's not another reclaimer ship," Ethan said. Zia stared at the feed. "It's not. What is it?" she whispered. "It's ours? Atherin?" She nodded slowly. "A probe part of the Forbidden's archive. It's only deployed when the artifact has been touched." The image enhanced. Symbols scrolled across the screen, ancient, unfamiliar even to Zaya. Then a voice, monotone and staticky, filled the station. "Candidate resonance confirmed. Origin unknown. Ascension protocol ... initializing." Ethan blinked. "Ascension what?" "Now?" Za's face drained of color, not literally, but the light of her skin dimmed to nearly nothing. "That shouldn't be possible. That's myth." The screen changed again. A schematic appeared of the artifact. But this time, it wasn't just a circle buried in soil. It was a door. A lock on something vast beneath the surface. Something no one had ever unearthed. Ethan swore under his breath. "There's a whole facility down there, isn't there?" Za whispered. "A vault, a message, a weapon. No one knows. Our ancestors sealed it before the Atherin had names. And now, we've opened the first lock." Za nodded. Outside, thunder rolled again, and then a voice spoke from the doorway, sharp, echoing, and utterly unwelcome. "So this is the chaos you've chosen, Zator?" Ethan turned slowly, dread dripping down his spine like cold rain, standing. In the doorway was Vieric. Tall, beautiful, dangerous. His skin shimmered like liquid silver. 2 Atherin soldiers flanked him, eyes glowing with disapproval. Z's glow dimmed further. "You were not summoned," she said. "I came because the Council has decided. Your presence here is destabilizing our most sacred protections. Your bond with this human," he sneered the word, "has tainted the artifact. You will return to Athera immediately." Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding. "She's not going anywhere with you." Varric barely looked at him. "And you are not a part of this conversation." Za's voice cut cleanly between them. "He is, and I will not return. You never understood what the artifact was meant for. You only feared losing control." Varric's eyes darkened. "You would throw away your birthright for this?" "I would throw away everything to be free," she said. "To be me." The artifact flared beneath their feet, pulsing with light. Varric staggered back. The soldiers raised their weapons. Zia turned toward Ethan, her hand glowing, reaching for his. "We finish this together," she whispered. Ethan took her hand, and the floor beneath them opened. A hidden chamber revealed. A staircase of light spiraling downward into the planet's core. Varric shouted something behind them, but the artifact's hum swallowed it. Zia looked at Ethan, her voice steady despite the tremor in the air. "Ready?" He swallowed. "No." He stepped forward anyway. Together they descended into the unknown. The light swallowed them, not with heat or pain, but with weight. It was like sinking into a dream made of gravity and memory. Ethan felt his limbs slow, his thoughts stretched thin like syrup, each heartbeat echoing longer than it should. His hand stayed in Za's, her grip a constant amid the disorientation. The staircase of radiant platforms spiraled into the deep below Viridia, forming just in time beneath their feet, like the world was calculating their next step as they moved. Above them, the hatch sealed with a hiss of finality. Varric's furious voice was muffled and meaningless now. The descent continued. And then the light ended. They stepped into silence. It wasn't just quiet. It was an engineered silence, oppressive and perfect. a silence meant to keep secrets buried. They stood in a vast chamber carved not of stone or metal, but of something older and obsidian-like material laced with veins of pale gold that pulsed faintly in time with their breaths. It wasn't a ruin. It was sleeping. Ethan turned in place, his voice low. "Za, what is this?" Za didn't answer immediately. Her glow was muted, like her own body wasn't sure it belonged here. "This is what they erased," she whispered. "What our histories call myth. The first vault." "Vault of what?" he asked. She finally looked at him, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked afraid. "Truth." A low hum resonated through the chamber, steady and rising, like a machine stretching after a long slumber. Symbols lit up along the walls, ancient and beautiful. A floating interface appeared before them, flickering as if calibrating itself to their presence. Ethan approached it instinctively, before Za reached out and stopped him. "Wait," she said. "It reacts to intention." "I've got plenty of that," Ethan muttered, mostly in the category of not dying. Asada stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Let me try." She placed her palm against the floating console. The air around her shimmered with energy. The runes pulsed. Then a voice, impossibly old and clear, echoed through the chamber. Resonance confirmed. Dual source interface detected. Initiating revelation protocol. Ethan blinked. That sounds like either really good news or the start of a horror movie. A beam of golden light shot from the ceiling and landed in the center of the room. Slowly, it unraveled into a holographic projection, an Atherin figure, ancient and robed, eyes glowing not with power, but grief. "To those who have found this vault," the figure said, "we speak from the edge of extinction. We were the first architects of unity. We created the Atherin from what was left behind, what you now call humans. But we feared the return of the dividers." Za stiffened. "That's impossible." Ethan stepped forward. "Wait, humans came before the Atherin?" The figure continued, unfazed by shock. "Our attempt to uplift humanity was incomplete. Their emotional spectrum was too volatile, their lifespans too brief. And yet, it was their imperfection that held the potential for true synthesis." The image faded. Za turned to Ethan, her voice low and shaking. "You're not just compatible with the artifact. You're the origin, the reason the Atherin exist." Ethan tried to speak, failed, tried again. "You're saying humanity didn't come after you. We came first?" Asa nodded slowly. "We were your evolutionary project. Modified, perfected." He rubbed his face. "That explains a lot. Like why I don't glow but constantly ruin things I touch." Then a sound echoed down the spiral above metal boots on radiant stairs. "They've found the entrance," Zay said. "Varric?" Ethan asked. Za shook her head. "No, worse. Suddenly, every wall in the chamber lit up. Dozens of smaller lights flared to life containment units. Holographic markers flickered. They're all active." Ethan whispered. Za was scanning the walls. "Each one. Each vault holds a different protocol. Genetic memory, weaponized empathy, synthetic emotion fields. It's not just knowledge, it's technology older than either of us." One chamber hissed. A containment field dropped. Inside was a figure, a being like neither Atherin nor human, but something between. Its eyes snapped open, pure light. Z stumbled back. "It's a custodian." The being rose, unblinking. Then it turned to Ethan. "You are the catalyst," it said, "and the echo." Ethan was frozen. "That sounds like destiny, and I really hate destiny." The custodian stepped forward. "You are the first in 10,000 years to pass the resonance trial. Your bond with the Atherin female is the final key. You are not two minds, you are one." Za whispered. "That's why the artifact responded. Not just because we were near it, But because we were in sync, the custodian nodded. Then you must decide. The dividers have returned. This vault can empower you both to fight them, or it can bury itself again. The choice is yours. Ethan looked at Zia. Zia looked back, her fear gone, replaced by something fierce and beautiful. No. Counsel, she said. No arranged fate, just choice. He took her hand. What's the catch? He asked. The custodian's glow brightened. To use what is buried here, you must become more than what you are. The vault will rewrite you. Za's voice didn't waver. We're already rewriting everything. The storm above intensified. Lightning forked through the sky. From the spiral stairs above, the sound of shouting Varric had arrived. The chamber walls flickered, preparing to shut again. Zia turned to Ethan. Last chance? Run or rise? He stared at the ancient vault, at the sleeping power. At her, he smiled, crooked, exhausted, fully human. Let's rise. They stepped into the beam together. Light consumed them. Above, Varric reached the threshold, too late. The vault sealed shut once more. The vault opened. Not with noise, not with fire or fanfare, but with light, a warm, ancient radiance that pulsed outward in ripples, rewriting the very fabric of the chamber around it. Stone became circuitry. Walls turned to memory. The room, once dormant, came alive in the presence of two beings who had chosen each other over fate. Ethan felt his bones vibrate with something that wasn't pain but transformation. Za gripped his hand as the beam of light surrounded them. Her patterns flared, not in panic, but in perfect resonance with his heartbeat. Their bodies were untouched, but something deeper shifted, like invisible layers peeling back, like hidden frequencies tuning themselves into harmony. And then it stopped. The light vanished. They remained standing, breathless, changed, and still. Whole. Ethan opened his eyes. Za was watching him. So was everything else. Dozens of containment chambers now stood open around them. Custodians, some humanoid, some far from it, observed in eerie silence. They bore no weapons, only presence. Their eyes glowed not with threat, but recognition. Ethan looked down at his hand. His skin still looked like his skin. No glowing, no armor, no superpowers. Just coffee-stained fingertips and old calluses. Did it do anything? Za stepped closer, placing her palm over his heart. Her eyes widened, then softened. You're not glowing, she said, because I am. You're the source. The vault gave me the interface. But it's your signal that answers. You're the light. I'm the antenna, Ethan said, almost smiling. Classic. But before either could reflect further, the ground above shuddered. Tremor rippled through the vault. Za spun toward the spiral stairwell, but it was no longer a staircase. The vault had sealed itself entirely from the surface, encased in layers of quantum shielding. They were cut off, but not alone. One of the Fadlan, one of the custodians, stepped forward. Its voice was not a voice, it was layered thought. Old, deep, absolute. They are coming. Za's gaze sharpened. The dividers? Their scouts arrived hours ago. Your activation of the Ascension Protocol accelerated their timeline. They come not just for the vault, but for the worlds above it. Ethan exhaled. Okay, no pressure. The custodian turned to him. You carry the echo of the original spark. You are not the weapon. You are the conductor. If you leave this chamber, what comes next will shape your species and hers. Za stepped forward. Then we need power. The custodian reached toward the center of the vault. A new platform rose, sleek, metallic, thrumming with promise. Embedded within was a single object, a sphere of translucent crystal pulsing with two lights, one soft gold, one pale blue, yin and yang. Earth and at her and Za reached for it. Ethan caught her wrist. Wait, what happens if we take it? The custodian answered simply. Then you must face the final convergence, together. Za looked to Ethan, eyes glowing now not from power but from choice. With you? He nodded. With you? They touched the sphere together. The chamber responded instantly. Energy raced through the walls, activating long-dead systems. Above, deep in the sky, the artifact pulsed again, sending one final signal, not a distress call. A summons. The clouds over Viridia ruptured. Dozens no. Hundreds of black reclaimer ships tore through the atmosphere like insects drawn to a flame. Lightning forked around them. Energy surged across their hulls. And at their core flew a command vessel, a leviathan of alien engineering, silent and terrifying. But it was not unopposed. The artifact flared in the sky, and dozens of beams responded. Custodian vessels, long dormant across the galaxy, awoke. Ships of impossible design, transparent, fluid, older than written history, broke through the veil of reality itself, answering a signal only two beings could have triggered. In the command center of the lead reclaimer vessel, something hissed. A decision was made. Descend, erase, reclaim. But as the reclaimers closed in, the skies opened again, and this time Za rose from the earth itself. She was no longer just Atherin. Her form glowed with energy not of her world nor of Ethan's. Her light wove around her like armor, her voice amplified by resonance fields that made stars pause. She hovered above the battlefield, and in her hand burned the sphere, the fusion of two origins. Behind her, Ethan stood aboard a custodian ship, interfacing with controls using nothing but his thoughts. He still wasn't glowing. Still didn't look powerful. But every vessel listened to him. You wanted to erase us? He whispered. He smiled. You should have brought more ships. The battle ignited. Custodian craft moved like thought. Reclaimer vessels struck with brute force. Energy tore through Viridia's skies, but the planet itself connected now to Ethan's will, and Za's harmony fought back. Trees shifted to deflect blasts. Rivers rose like serpents of light. Even the wind bent to their defense. Zia cut through enemy formations, her movements poetry and precision. She was a goddess of motion, untouchable, unbound. But Ethan? He commanded everything else. Their bond was not strategy. It was symbiosis. When Zeus was surrounded, Ethan sent a pulse from the custodian ship that erased her attackers in a flash of anti-light. When Ethan's ship was targeted, Za severed the projectile mid-flight, catching it in a telekinetic field and hurling it back at the fleet. And when the reclaimer command ship descended, aiming to crush Viridia beneath its weight, they didn't run. They ascended. Together, they struck the command ship with the sphere itself, no longer just an object, but a singularity of energy, created by love, imperfection, and will. The ship cracked. Reality buckled, and then it was gone. In the aftermath, silence. Ships fled. Lights dimmed. The battle ended not with a roar, but with a breath. Weeks later, the Viridia station had been rebuilt. Ethan sat on the roof, drinking coffee. Zia joined him, folding her legs beside him, her glow gentle now, familiar. So, she said, still wish I'd gone with Varric? Ethan grinned. Only if I wanted to be vaporized by emotional repression and decorative poetry. Za laughed softly, resting her head against his shoulder. The galaxy's going to come calling, he said. The council. The reclaimers. Others. Zia nodded. Let them. They'll find two beings who rewrote the rules. Ethan tilted his mug toward the stars, to being unqualified and unprepared. Za raised hers, and still saving the galaxy. They drank in silence. Above them, the stars shimmered, no longer just distant lights, but echoes of the day the universe changed. because one alien girl didn't want to be worshipped, and one human didn't want to be alone. Everyone had wanted her, but she had chosen him.